Hello, my friends. Dennis Prager here. 34 minutes past the hour. The Case Against Homework is the book. I happen to agree with the author, or co-author to be precise. Nancy Kalish wrote it with Sara Bennett. Sara is currently being chased by 7,000 teachers right now across America. Could not come on. And we agree here, folks. There is more to youth than school. I always believed in Mark Twain's statement, I never let school interfere with my education. I'll tell you about my youngest child. My older ones are married. My youngest is 14. And he actually likes school, and he is not at all a school type. But the biggest, well, not the biggest, but a major factor is the very small school actually takes place in a house. And it's an accredited school, but it's a very small one. And the woman who runs it has them finish all their homework, and then they go home. So they literally have no homework. Whatever after-school work there is done there. The kid is happy to do that because they hate the idea of coming home and doing more work.
It makes a lot of sense. You know, it's sort of like the homeschooler model, and homeschoolers are finding a lot of success, a lot of academic success. Their kids are loving to learn, and they have time to pursue other interests and other passions and spend time with their families as well. Yep.
A lot of people don't agree with us, which is just fine, and let me take some of those. Robert in Louisville, Kentucky, you're on with the police and with Nancy Kalish and me.
Sorry about that, Dennis.
I'm sure you were not involved in the chase. Go ahead.
Hi, Dennis. I agree with you on just about every subject. I love your show, but I have to say I passionately disagree with your position.
Well, isn't that a relief?
I actually think that homework is where the real learning takes place. Subjects are introduced to students in school, but until you go home, digest the material, especially in mathematics, work through the problems repetitively, and it takes some students longer than others. And this time outside of school is vital to grasping and really gaining full knowledge of the subject.
Well, I have two comments about that. I, again, respectfully disagree. The first is that child development psychologists would tell you that actually in order for kids to learn and really retain information, something called memory consolidation needs to take place. And that means they need a break from the learning in order for their brain to actually consolidate and absorb the information. And that break would happen overnight or over a vacation, for instance. But another thing
at some point you have to, again, going back to mathematics, anyone who has any knowledge or any ability at all in mathematics knows that you don't learn math by just being presented the subject in a classroom. You can understand what the teacher's telling you, but if you don't do the problems outside of class, you will never succeed in math. You cannot do it.
I'm really glad you brought up math, because I think math is an excellent example, too, but for a completely different reason. According to the U.S. Department of Education, 5 math problems for homework is actually the perfect number of math problems for a child to learn a concept. And there are 2 really good reasons for this. The first is that 5 problems is enough for the teacher to determine whether or not the child's able to do them properly and whether or not the child understands the concept without making the kid go on and do 40 other problems and get bored. But let's say you don't care about a child being bored, and many of us don't feel it's necessary sometimes to be bored in school, and I agree. 5 problems is enough to determine whether a child doesn't understand the concept. And if a child doesn't understand the concept and is made to slog through another 45 problems and does them incorrectly, that incorrect method is then cemented into the child's brain and will have to be unlearned. Compounding this problem is the fact that when a teacher has a class of 30 kids and assigns 50 math problems for homework at night, that's 1,500 math problems to grade. There is no way that teacher is getting through those 1,500 math problems every night. So when a child misses the math problems and clearly doesn't understand, it's often missed by the teacher. And kids are truly being left behind because they're doing problem after problem incorrectly and no one is noticing them. So I think math is a really good example, but for a completely different reason. It's just not effective to practice.
All right, Robert, I really thank you for your call, and it was a very interesting answer. I think the best way to test it is to see that those of us who grew up doing little homework, and how did that turn out? Back in a moment. My guest is Nancy Kalish, Dennis Prager, 44 minutes past the hour. The case against homework, which I happen to agree with her. From my own experience, from the experience of my children, I did not demand of my children much work in high school and so on. They all two of the three, I don't know what the third will be because he's too young, but two of the three developed tremendous interest in the intellectual life. They love books now. And I think school knocks a lot of that love out, especially with all of this homework that is given. It is not given really to learn anyway. It's given to get, or kids do it a lot, to get great grades. So, and I believe, you're young once, and I think if you allow yourself to be a kid, how do you like this theory of mine? I've said this a number of times to my listeners, Nancy Kalish, author of The Case Against Homework. If you're allowed to be a kid when you're a kid, you'll want to be an adult when you're an adult.
I think you're completely right, and I think it's so sad that we're not paying more attention to what's going on with our kids in school and after school and how we're taking that away from them. And
we don't do it. I keep emphasizing, adults don't do this.
That's right. But
parents come home and they do whatever they do. They watch television, which I'm not a big fan of, but they're not doing more work.
No, it's true. But you know what some parents are doing, which is unfortunate, is the loads are so heavy and their kids have such a hard time coping that some parents are really very, very involved in their kids' homework.
I know.
And we had a lot of parents.
My parents never did homework with me. This is another brand new thing.
I know, and you know what happens? First of all, there's a couple of things. The first thing that happens is that we had a lot of parents admit to us that they had done either part of their kids' homework or all of their kids' homework, because when it's 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night and your fifth grader is hysterical because she can't finish her math sheet, guess who's going to fill it in? Because, again, parents are so worried. Parents are as worried as kids are about grades. So that's actually sort of teaching your kid to cheat, to put it plainly, which is not a good thing. And it's also not developing your kid as any kind of independent learner. What you're showing that your child is, well, you can't do it on your own. I have to rush in to rescue you. And it's why there are so many parents these days who are actually, I couldn't believe this when I found this out, who are actually buying second copies of their kids' college textbooks in order to, quote-unquote, help their kids with their homework in college. It's really a terrible situation. Plus, it causes tremendous amounts of stress and arguments between parents and kids.
All right, we got more people who disagree. Well, I took only disagreeers. Let me try to vary it here. And here's a teacher, actually, from Fulton, California. Where is Fulton, Kristen?
Oh, it's Folsom with an S.
I got it wrong here. We will flagellate Eva later. What is it, Folsom?
Yeah, Folsom, like Johnny Cash, Folsom City Blues.
Gotcha. I still don't know where it is.
Sorry, it's outside of Sacramento.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, so I am calling in support of your topic because I've been a teacher for 8 years in math and science. And basically, my opinion of having kids do homework is they're just not doing it at home. And so as a teacher, you've got to give participation points. They're either doing it or they're not. And, 80% of the kids come back not having done their homework. So that is not a true indication of whether they're learning or not. Just because they don't do their homework doesn't mean they don't grasp the concept. So it's kind of a negative way to grade. And then one of also the biggest problem, especially with math, is that when the teacher teaches it a certain way in the classroom, the students go home, the parents have this whole other way, or they don't have a clue. So really, they're either being instructed in in an additional way at home how to do the math problem, which could be correct, might be incorrect, and then, or they're not getting any help at all. So then there's just kind of mass confusion about homework, especially when you get into middle school and high school level, concepts in math and science.